Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, red.olaughlin here. Today's Talking Head show on the USA Global TV and Radio Network will also be seen on the E360 TV network, on Roku, on Amazon Fire, and I can't even tell you how many more are coming, but there are many, many more. So why don't I get my slides lined up here and we'll get started today. We've been doing a deep dive into nutrition, things that, you need a little bit of this or a little bit of that, but I'm going into why are we taking some of these things? Where are they available? How can I get them? A little bit deeper than most of the information that we see. As a disclaimer, I'm a researcher. I've never been in the medical, pharmaceutical fields. Not my area. My first love in life was chemistry. I got a degree in it. I got an invitation to Vietnam and never really ever got a chance to practice it after that. I did, however, take that degree, and several years ago when my wife was having breast cancer and the chemotherapy treatments, I was able to do a deep dive into why does this drug cause this kind of side effect and what can I do to counter that side effect. And most of them are fairly easy. I mean, just talking to the nurses, they said, well, try this over here. It's an off-counter remedy for this, and most of the time they worked. But sometimes there was a little deeper that I had to dive in. And for the most part, I think we did a pretty good job of treating all the symptoms. But symptoms are symptoms. They're sitting there on the surface. Something's causing them. That's what I'm interested in. A company I work for, I was their primary failure analysis person. Something failed somewhere in the world. Why? Why did it fail? And I would be the person responsible for finding out in most of the cases. And so I took that same mindset. I applied it to the side effects of the chemo drugs, and then said, this chemistry thing is pretty neat. I like it a lot. So then I started switching over. I was used to be in self-improvement and motivation speaking, wrote a couple of books on that one around the country. But nowadays I do most of my stuff on health and wellness. I specialize in longevity, but I really concentrate on cause and effect relationships, chemically speaking. Treat a cause, fix a problem, treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. But the big thing about symptoms is they can hide the underlying cause and you're not treating it, so it's not getting any better. Okay, so we're going to continue on. As always, this presentation is for awareness and education. So moving right along. We've talked about pretty much all of the other vitamins so far. Spent last week talking a lot just on two. But the last one I want to cover, at least in this field of a deep dive, is vitamin K. Critical for blood clotting, wound healing, bone health. It's a fat-soluble one, which means you should have it with a meal. You can find it in greens, some plant oils, fermented foods, dairy. Vitamin K1, vitamin K2, vitamin K3. I didn't put the K3 up there because it's kind of an experimental drug thing that is really no benefit for anybody in our normal line of work, just being people doing what we do. But vitamin K1, our body converts and uses it, but our body doesn't convert as much as we need to vitamin K2. The vitamin K2, whereas the K1 comes from our leafy green vegetables in a particular kind of molecular structure, that structure changes over to a monoquinone in vitamin K2. We usually get that from the meats and the dairies and organ meats, but that's the one that really helps our bodies more than the other. We need them both. but the vitamin K2. And there's some issues in there that are very, very interesting. They both work the same. Vitamin K2 has maybe a little bit better bioavailability. They both have their pluses and minuses. But as far as I'm concerned, it is absolutely one of the, if you're not taking it and you're not getting enough of it from your foods, it's going to have some effect on you. And as we go through this one here, I'll hope to point that out to you. But what if you're deficient in vitamin K2? Well, it's going to affect your cardiovascular system, your bones, bleeding issues. If you get too much, which is extremely rare, it's something you can take in mega doses and not have a problem. But you might have some breathing, swelling, maybe a little jaundice kind of eyes and skin, a little stiffness. And most of the time you can say, well, you can take this pill with this or something else and it helps. But in this particular case, it doesn't matter. Vitamin K1 or 2, there's no other nutrients that help it, as they pretty much operate independently. The part that I like about the vitamin K2 are the monoquinones. There's two primary ones. There's other ones out there, and they all have benefits. But the ones most of the research is done on, ones you can buy in the store, is monoquinone 4 and 7. Okay. The monoquinone 4 reduces fractures, improves bone health. You can get it in your eggs, meat, liver. The MK7 has a calcium binding effect, there for structural support, primarily in your heart and your bones. And again, from fermented soybeans or cheeses are the primary ones for that. Several years ago, I'd read an article about a guy who had this and that and everything else wrong, and he didn't take a sabbatical from everything, but he did a real deep dive into vitamin K2, thinking that it could alleviate a lot of his heart problems and other issues. Well, it turns out if you look at the way, let me double check here. I want to see if I have that one in there. Nope, we're going to go right back. Okay, if I want to get calcium into the bones, and we've talked about this before, I need a good quality calcium, hopefully something from a food. My body has to already have adequate amounts of magnesium. So it comes into my stomach, has its bioavailability improved with the magnesium. The calcium leaves the stomach. If I have enough vitamin D3, it extracts it from the duodenum into the bloodstream. That's where we want it. Then if I have enough vitamin K2, that's what we're talking about here, it's going to go to my bones. But if I don't have enough vitamin K2, it's going to go to my heart valves and arteries. So I now have extra plaque forming in my heart valves and arteries because I don't have enough vitamin K2. Clue, that's a very sensitive thing. You may not see it for decades, but it's one of those things that all of a sudden you wake up, or maybe you don't wake up, because you have a problem with clotting, plaque clotting and gumming up all the works. I have a left anterior descending artery that's 100% clogged, but my heart grew 2 brand new blood vessels around the clot. So I have a DIY double bypass, but that's not the norm. It can happen, especially in your brain. It can happen easy in your brain. Your heart, not so much, because it's not a blood vessel there. It has to actually be built. But the Japanese started using their seaweed as part of their vitamin K2. And they started noticing that I can take calcium from the heart and reduce the plaque levels that were in there. Now, normal doses will prevent plaque from building up, but to take and remove the plaque from the heart, the calcium buildups in the heart, I need some really high doses. I'm not going to go into what those are here. That's something you and your doctor need to talk about, if your doctor is even aware of it. But there's enough information there. But most of the time you can buy vitamin K2 with or without MK4, MK7. But if you're serious about it, something that you really want to do, it's a viable option. It's been used around various parts of the world, but you just can't go willy-nilly in and say, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and buy this and take it. No. Talk to your doctor. If he doesn't know, tell him it's something that you really want to do and see who he can recommend, because it is an alternative. Okay, let's dive into some minerals. I've been in minerals now for a while, so this is the first one. And we have what we call trace minerals. In other words, I only need that much. I don't need much at all, but I need a little bit. Well, boron is a trace mineral, as opposed to just a regular mineral like calcium. But boron is needed in the bones, brains, needed for hormone synthesis in the body. Our immune system needs it. And we get a fairly good access through leafy green vegetables, some grains, some non-citrus fruits, nuts. And boron also, I talked about the immune system and hormones. It also helps to stabilize, metabolize other key vitamins and minerals in the body. It's a workhorse, but you don't need much of it. If you end up with a situation where you're boron deficient, not many people have it, but it's possible. Brain fog might end up seeing some extra little doodads or not some extra little doodads on your EEG, some bone and joint pain, and there's actually a very long list of boron deficiencies. So if you have a couple things in there, in fact, you're going to find that you're deficient in almost any kind of vitamin and mineral, vomiting, diarrhea, confusion. They have all sorts of similar ones. Trying to figure out which one you have is difficult. But take a look at your diet, write it down, talk to your pharmacist, talk to your nutritionist, talk to your doctor. What are you not getting that you should get? If you get too much boron, be fatal. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, tremors, and several more. Most of the time for us, we get it in our foods, our salt. I used to believe that the Himalayan pink salt was the absolute #1 top salt to get. And I was watching some YouTube videos the other day, and the guy was talking about, not Yukon, it's Mayan. It was a salt from Mexico. I want to say Baja, I think it's Baja Gold. And the reason he had that one and Celtic salt above the Mediterranean pink salt, not the Mediterranean, Himalayan pink salt, was he said because of heavy metals in that part of the world in processing. And I had to stop and think, probably right. It's a concern, but I have buku amounts of pink salt here, but I checked it out, and that Baja Gold is fairly inexpensive, and I'll probably be ordering it here in the not too distant future. Just another little tweak to improve my health. But in your salt, you're going to get 70, 80 different kinds of trace minerals and things our body needs. So the salt might be the solution to most of these trace minerals. So it's not something you need to go out and buy a bottle of trace minerals and just gobble it down. Try to get it from your diet. Calcium, most abundant mineral in the body. We got our teeth, our bones, everything that has some level of strength and structure has calcium in it. We get it from our dairy, from nuts. A lot of calcium is in fortified breads and cereals, leafy green vegetables. And this one you take with food. Supplements, that's what I'm talking about. If you're taking a supplement with calcium, take it with food. If you're taking it with leafy green vegetables, or you're getting it without the food, it's going to go in and naturally be absorbed. But if you're buying calcium as part of a multi-mineral, multivitamin, take a look at it, because most of the calcium that's sold in pill form is calcium carbonate. I don't consider it the absolute worst, but it's very difficult to absorb, especially without food. And of course, if you don't have the magnesium and vitamin D3, it ends up in the toilet. So it's done you no good other than if you like spending money. But the carbonate, there's so many other ones out there. I use calcium citrate, but there's a couple other ones that are much easier to absorb. The magnesium gets it into a more of an absorbable form in the stomach. And that calcium citrate can be taken with or without food. So again, check the label and see what kind of calcium you're getting. If you're taking it from your foods, non-issue. Okay, what if you're deficient a little bit in calcium? Well, osteoporosis, bone issues, skin, muscle issues, your oral health decline because your teeth, seizures, and many, 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 many more. I mean, it's a big, long list of, well, how do I know that I'm just deficient in that? Again, keep a record of what you're eating, what you're taking. That's a pretty good source to go back and say, well, I haven't had anything green to eat in 2 months. Maybe that's a clue. What about too much calcium? You're going to know right away. Digestive issues, definitely increased thirst, brain fog, that's confusion, headaches, depression, irritability. You're not getting the right twing and twang with the muscles. You're going to end up with muscle aches, weaknesses. This particular one, unlike vitamin K2. Calcium really does go better with boron, cobalt, and we're going to talk about cobalt here in a minute. Essential fatty acids, manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, and the basic vitamins A, B series, C, D, E, and zinc. So those are the ones that if you're going to take calcium, it almost sounds like I'm taking it as part of a multivitamin. Now, if you're eating your foods and you have a lot of greens and everything else, you're probably going to be taking this multivitamin in food form. If you have any kind of kidney disease at all, really talk to your doctor before you think about doing any supplementation whatsoever with calcium. Cobalt, kind of a dangerous chemical, but cobalt is part of vitamin B12. It's cobalamin. And you look at cobalamin, cobalt, that's the source of it. And we look at that because our red blood cells need that cobalt. So when I look at what kinds of, we talked about this under vitamin B12, typically I would buy at the store cyanocobalamin as part of a multivitamin. However, that cannot survive stomach acid, so you need the kind that goes under the tongue and dissolves straight into the bloodstream. So that cobalt is taken out of the B12 and used where it's needed at. But you just don't take cobalt as a supplement, even if you can find it, because there's a lot of problems with it. Number one, it's carcinogenic in higher levels, a lot of health issues associated with it. It's not really a chemical that we should even be worried about. It shouldn't even be, but it's one of the ones when you say, I'm going to do a deep dive into nutrition, I'm looking at nutrition and minerals, it's one we should at least touch on. So other than vitamin B12, don't worry about it. Copper, essential trace mineral. Again, we're back down in the itsy bitsy teeny weeny portions. Our bodies need very small amounts, hence the trace part of it. Most of the time, copper is used as a catalyst for enzymes. In other words, a catalyst allows a chemical operation to be sped up. If I didn't have the catalyst in there, a particular operation might take 2 hours to occur. But with a catalyst, it might occur in 10 seconds because the catalyst stimulates the rapid chemical reaction of whatever is involved. And it's not involved in the end product, but the catalyst speeds the end product along. Most of our trace elements I mentioned from food, get some from supplements, but I think salt is probably the best one, and copper is in there. Copper is used as red blood cells. In fact, if you have a major bleeding issue or you happen to be in an area where there's a lot of blood, you can actually smell that copper. It has a very metallic sense on the nose. Used in metabolic functions primarily to help the energy generation. We have collagen in various places in our bodies, probably the nose being the most prominent because you can see it. But we have other places where we have collagen, and copper is needed for, again, the formation of that. Brain development, a lot with immunity. And there's a lot of other things. This very minor essential trace mineral is used. It's pretty little potent animal all by itself. If I have copper deficiency, not normal, but it can happen. Anemia, osteoporosis. But again, that's something that takes a long time to happen. It doesn't happen overnight. But balance issues can happen pretty quickly. And balance issues may be a vertigo issue that can easily be solved, or it may be something with a vitamin or mineral deficiency. So a lot of ways to go when you look at some of these side effects, symptoms. You could have heart arrhythmias, skin and pigment issues, and again, copper has a multitude of things across the body. If you get too much, your typical nausea, vomiting, stomach ache, and again, a metallic taste. That same metallic that you can smell when there's a lot of blood, you actually get that same taste in your mouth when you have too much of it. And copper is found in shellfish, seeds, nuts, chocolate, leafy greens. Chloride, not something you go out and buy. It's usually part of something else. So the chloride, as we typically use it, it's going to be part of sodium chloride salt, but you can get it as potassium chloride. And that's generally been a good salt substitute for people who have sodium chloride issues. But chloride as an electrolyte helps move fluid in and out of cells. Sometimes the cells needs fluid, sometimes it wants to get rid of it. And you end up with having swelling. That chloride is part of that electrolyte to get stuff moving back and forth. When you have electrolyte issues and it affects your heart, a lot of issues happen in there because it can't get the fluids moving back and forth the way it should. Chlorides help keep the body pH levels. pH is an amazing part of the body. So long as we keep it alkaline above 7.4, where 7 is basically zero neutral, you keep it a little bit on the alkaline side, your body's pretty happy. It's going to be rarely infected, rarely have a health issue. You keep it down below 7, and now those acidic situations create a problem. We've talked about this before. Proteins, fats, carbohydrates all increase the acidic level of the body. Fruits and vegetables increase the alkaline level of the body. So in the big scheme of things, you need to actually eat more fruits and vegetables than you do carbs, proteins, and fats. You also get salt. Salt is where the primary source of chloride is, but it's also in a lot of food. You'll see the processing. It uses the salt or some other aspect of it to improve it. Deficiency in chlorides, fever, breathing issues, confusion, swelling, and many more. Too much chloride. There's no specific symptoms here, but electrolyte imbalance definitely gets your heart. You're all of a sudden there's something wrong down here. Fatigue, blood pressure problems, thirst, diarrhea, vomiting, and more. Chromium, one of my favorite. And it's interesting because of the way we looked at chromium, the way we look at chromium today versus the way we looked at it 100 years ago. It's an essential mineral. It regulates our blood sugar levels, critical for anybody who's diabetic. It really and truly is. We get it in grape juice, green beans, meat, nuts, apples, oranges, and other places. If I have too little chromium in the body, I'm going to have low blood sugar, in other words, insulin resistance issues, diabetes, obesity, weight loss. You can say, well, how can I have obesity and weight loss? The deficiency creates problems in there that you're not burning fat the way you need. All of a sudden, it's a long, involved process. We talked about it quite at length in one of my Talking Heads programs on weight loss and fat loss. But if you get too much, it's generally okay. We're not really talking about something that's going to be a major, major problem. And it's really hard to get too much from any kind of food situation. But you end up with a little bit of stomach irritation. You might hear a little flutter in the heart, but you can get liver, kidney, and nerve damage. You might get some itching in the skin, some flushing, that redness. But the part that I think is very interesting, I was listening to a doctor talk one night, and he says, before World War II, gestational diabetes was never really a problem. Doctors realized that the fetus was taking the mother's chromium. They just gave them more chromium. Thank you very much. End of story. Really never had any gestational diabetes problems prior to World War II. We had the war. All of a sudden, everybody forgot what they were doing before the war. And now you start treating them and things happen. You go and you look at them. I don't think I have anything more than that. No, let's go back to this one. But if you go back and you start looking at chromium and you type in chromium and gestational diabetes, you're going to get a little bit of wishy-washiness on it because there are some studies that actually show it works well. I know more than a couple diabetics that I mentioned this to. They're not pregnant, but they just started taking chromium, increased, and it made major difference. They almost got off of it. In fact, I think one person did get off their insulin. So it's a major shifter in that diabetic blood sugar area. Something to talk to your doctor about, especially if you're pregnant. That's definitely somewhere up near the top of the things to talk about. And I think with that, I'm going to leave it there. And so fluoride, iodine, and okay, we're just going to talk real quickly about the Joy of Ageless Health. It can be found on my website, Barnes & Noble, not Barnes & Noble, Amazon. But it talks about the 7 primary causes of disease in the body at the cellular level and what you can do to tackle each one of them. If you get a chance, interest you, more than strongly recommend that you purchase it. That being so, we'll catch you next week on another adventure of Talking Heads with red.olaughlin on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, E360, Roku, and Amazon Fire. Bye now.
This program has been brought to you in part by Zane Carson Carruth, etiquette and protocol expert, international award-winning author, television show host, and philanthropist. Thank you to Zane, our official diamond sponsor for USA Global TV and Radio in partnership with E360 TV. Zane is the author of The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever, as well as many other children's books. She's also the television host of Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living, seen on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating warm memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Bella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Bella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Bella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
To learn more about Zane, contact her through her website, zanecarruth.com, ZANECARRUTH.com. Order Zane's books and merchandise. Contact her about being a keynote speaker at your next event.